Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee for December 28th, 2021. We don't have any pre-registered speakers, but pursuant to AB 361, we will allow a 3-minute period for callers to call in on each individual item should they desire to do so. And the instructions on how to do that are on the front page at the top of the agenda for this meeting. So if you wish to call in on any of the items, there will be a 3-minute window in which to do that. With that, we will move into the agenda. And Madam Clerk, if we can have a roll call and posting of the agenda, please. And then Mayor, if you'd lead us in the flag salute.
Will do.
Member Zaragoza,
Here.
Member Madrigal,
Here.
Chair McDonald.
Here, and Mayor, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. If you could pull the mic a little bit closer to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. Thank you.
Please join me to salute the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Now we'll take us to item B, public comments on items not on the agenda. As I said, there are no public speakers registered, but Madam Clerk, if we can start the 3-minute clock and we'll see if anybody wishes to call in.
Yes, Chair McDonald. Thank you.
And Madam Clerk, I'll presume that nobody called in to discuss, make any comments on items not on the agenda. Is that correct?
We do not have any public speakers. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That'll take us to item C, the consent agenda. If you would start the 3-minute window again for people to call in. And the request is that the committee approve the minutes of the November 23rd, 2021 regular meeting as presented. Do committee members have any comments or additions or other issues with the minutes?
I don't, Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Madrigal, any additions? No?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
We will wait for the 3 minutes to run through and then
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, it would appear that we have no speakers on this item either. What would be the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second,
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Member Madrigal,
aye.
Member Zaragoza,
Aye.
Chair McDonald.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item D, reports. The first one's with the Housing Department, and if we could start the 3-minute clock for people to call in on this item, that would be great. And then there will not be any presentation. That was done previously through a recorded presentation pursuant to Measure M. So if the committee members have any questions for staff, now would be the time to bring them forward.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the former Gull Wings Museum. Is that up for sale? And what's happening there, Mr. Ramirez?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Emilio Ramirez, Housing Director. All of the properties are being declared surplus as part of the initial step to eventually dispose of the property. So per the new Surplus Land Act, we have to go through a process to declare and make it available first to affordable housing developments. And after we undertake that process, then we can negotiate the sale of the property. So yes, we do intend to eventually sell it, but we have to go through this preliminary step first.
But initially, they have to declare them as surplus properties.
The very first step is to declare it surplus, which means that the city doesn't need the property for its city purpose.
But it could be there for years anyway, but it's just a matter of making sure, or is there a timeline for that?
No, after we declare the property as surplus, there is no real timeline to sell it. In fact, we can withdraw it from the surplus list and keep it. And for that matter, the city, for example, another city department could desire to acquire it and use it for their purpose.
And I had the same question for the Oxnard Transit Center on 4th and Oxnard Boulevard. Do we own the whole parcel there, Mr. Ramirez?
So the property in question is the surface parking lot that kind of wraps around the commercial building there. And it's actually multiple parcels that the city owns. And it's not any of the buildings, but the asphalt that's the parking lot.
But so potentially the parking lot could be sold for a building or whatever. Would that impair the parking amount that was traditionally set because it's a transportation center?
So well, first of all, we hope to be able to build out or develop that corner in a way that is compatible with the community needs for both commercial and whatever use would come forward. And so as part of this preliminary process, we're first declaring it and then going forward. If we could identify a proper redevelopment use and buyer, then we will be able to then undertake its disposition. At that point, we would impose requirements that they park the new development along with the current development as per code. That site itself does not meet is not used for the parking requirements of the transit center because there's a separate parking lot for that purpose.
Okay, so potentially we could have a parking structure or something too, right? Event,
I
potentially.
mean, we could, there may be a way that the eventual development could comply with the parking requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I want to ask Assistant City Attorney Ken Roselle to chime in because this is a step that we're forced to take. It's a new hurdle. This is not something we would elect to do along the path of getting downtown redeveloped. So I'm going to ask Mr. Roselle to talk about the recent requirement.
Yes, in 2019, the state legislature adopted AB 1486, which imposed these new conditions. This was an effort by the state to require cities to play a greater role in the production of affordable housing. Back when the legislature 10 years ago voted to take away redevelopment, they took away one of the big funding mechanisms to provide for affordable housing. So not surprisingly, once that was taken away, there was a substantial need for additional housing. So the legislature has taken a number of what I would deem to be aggressive stances to basically force public entities to not be able to sell the property for their full value, but to first require that it be considered for affordable housing uses. So that is one of the options that the property first, assuming that the council goes ahead and declares these properties surplus, that the city and the parking authority will have to consider proposals from affordable housing developers for these sites. The city and parking authority are not required to accept the offers, but they have to enter into good faith negotiations with the housing developers. If there's not the ability to reach an agreement, then the city has ability to consider other potential developments on the site, which may more closely reflect the city's council's visions for these parcels, especially when it comes to the downtown parcels. But this is a state law requirement, and the city would face substantial penalties if we did not follow this process. So this is why we are taking these steps to move forward. As Mr. Ramirez indicated, just because there's a decision to declare these properties surplus does not mean that they will have to be taken out of their current use if the council does not decide to approve the sale to a third party. So happy to answer any other questions you may have regarding this process.
Mr. Chair, that's also Mr. City Manager, part of our priorities that we set up for the downtown 4th Street corridor. And that's potentially is going to help us in the future. Correct. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. I
Sure.
don't have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Madrigal, any comments or questions?
No, all questions were answered already. Thank you.
Thank you. And a lot of my concerns were answered. I still am not happy about this. I'm not fond about this. I have a problem of calling parking lots as surplus property. They serve a need downtown, especially when we have events. Parking is at a premium. So to declare a public parking lot as a surplus parking lot, when it actually, or a surplus piece of property, when it serves a very vital role to downtown, I just don't like the concept of it. I realize that this is a mandate by state law. We have to do this. I guess my heartache there is that the state takes a one-size-fits-all approach and initiates it for the entire state. Well, Oxnard is not the same as Ventura or Santa Barbara or Los Angeles or anywhere else. We have our own individual needs and our own individual efforts to resolve things. And to put a one size or one approach fits all needs into place just doesn't work for me. And we see this in other areas. Because of state mandated concessions, we're seeing a huge parking problem on North Victoria Avenue, north of Gonzales Road. And that's because of state mandates, because of concessions that were made available by the state through the city that we really have no control over. And now the state is essentially taking away R1 zoning from us. And I just don't think it's a good way to run our city. They're taking away local control. I think that local control should stay with us. So I am really not fond of this, but I do recognize that it's not a mandate that we have to sell the property. That was my big concern in talking with staff earlier. I was afraid that we would just be opening the door to anyone saying, hey, I want to do this. You have to sell me the property. So at least there is some opportunity for us to say we can't come to terms and we're not mandated, but I still think it's going to be a monumental undertaking, perhaps somewhat of a nightmare. So I'm a realist. I recognize it is what it is. I'm not happy about it, but I also realize the staff is doing the best they can to comply with law and keep us from, not making the right choices. So I appreciate all the staff efforts. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Mhm.
Hey, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Chair McDonald,
No.
Member Madrigal.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 2-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to the next item, item number 2, the fire department. Subject is mutual aid response with California Office of Emergency Services. And the request is that we adopt a resolution approving the side letters with the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, Oxnard Bin Managers Association, OMMA, and the Oxnard Public Safety Managers Association, OPSMA, concerning mutual aid response with California Office of Emergency Services, also known as Cal OES. There was a pre-recorded presentation pursuant to Measure M, available on YouTube. And Chief Hamilton is here for any questions that the committee may have for him or clarifications.
Should we start at 3 minutes?
Aaron, any questions?
Yeah,
Chair McDonald, I will start the 3-minute
I'm sorry.
timer
Thank you,
for
sir.
the public speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I goofed.
Mr. Chair and Chief, so this mutual aid response with California Emergency Services That has to be updated on a yearly basis. Is that correct?
Mayor, not exactly. So the resolution that's before you tonight, it needed to be updated because the last time we submitted that resolution was back in 2014.
Okay.
And so the language that we had in there was out of date. However, we do on an annual basis, we do submit a salary survey to the Cal OES office to make sure that we are getting reimbursed for every dollar that we should be getting reimbursed for.
So this way, if they're called for mutual aid, you know, you start running the clock when they leave the office and the equipment and also I think there's admin costs added to that too, correct?
That's absolutely correct. So this covers basically all costs associated with sending people out on mutual aid deployments. So that the personnel costs or overtime, the any travel costs, because occasionally we put people up in hotel rooms, they need food and things like that. And then obviously if we ever send out city vehicles, so fire engines or city support vehicles, we also get reimbursed for those. It's known as engine hours or vehicle costs. And then finally, we do receive an administrative fee on top of all of those things.
And Mr. Chair, and Chief Hamilton, part of that funding comes back to part to the general fund and part to the fire department budget, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We were recently before the Finance and Governance Committee and going to council because we outlay money out of our fire department budget to cover those costs. And then as that money gets reimbursed, it comes back into the fire department budget.
And then you split it accordingly. Okay,
Correct.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Madrigal. Any comments or questions?
No comments or questions. Thank you, though.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Chief. I think this addresses a hitch that probably no one ever gave any thought to, but typically command staff in either police or fire don't receive overtime. You get paid for a 40-hour week and that's it. So on the rare occasion that someone from command staff could be sent out to one of these emergencies, the way the contracts are set up now, they would be expected to get paid 40 hours a week, even if they're sleeping in a dirt lot for 2 weeks at a time, away from their family and everything else. I think it's fair that they be compensated for that. That's what these side letters do. So I think this is a good approach. Thank you very much. What's the pleasure of the committee? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me wait 5 more seconds see if there's any calls.
We do not have any public speakers. Thank you, Chair McDonald.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, now I will say the magic words. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Chair McDonald,
Yes.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item number 3, a ratification of submission of application for 2021 Emergency Management Performance Grants. And there is an in-kind match of $36,393 required, which is why it's come to committee. And Madam Clerk, if you would start the 3-minute clock for the call-in period, please. Thank you very much. And there was a pre-recorded message done on our YouTube channel pursuant to Measure M. And so there will be no presentation here, but if the committee members have any questions of Chief Hamilton, now would be the time to ask them or for any clarification.
So we have to submit the ratification for the application for the 2021 Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG. So what does that in-kind match mean? That 36,000 is required. What does that mean?
Mayor, that's a great question. So the match, essentially, what this grant allows us to do is to offset the cost of having an emergency manager. So we need to have an emergency manager, obviously, to help us plan for and mitigate large-scale incidents. This grant actually provides an offset to the emergency manager's salary, and so the in-kind match we're providing is the rest of the emergency manager's salary.
Oh, I see. So it's that covers that then for that. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've been using this EMPG grant in the same fashion for I'm not even sure, at least 10 years, if not longer. And so it's a great little offset that we're allowed to do because we really do need an emergency manager.
So, but that's not part of your, is that part of the budget or added to the budget or? of your
Correct. So
department?
yeah, so the fire department, we are budgeted for an emergency manager through the general fund. And then this grant allows us to offset some of the costs of that salary.
Oh, okay, it's an offset, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Councilmember Montreal, any comments?
Mhm.
No questions. Just a quick comment. I know over the years, Mr. Brewer's done a terrific job with emergency aspects towards the city. I've seen how prepared he is, and I've seen him actually in action working with the community. So I know this is for a good cause. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Chief, I heard you mention it. Whether we got any grant money for this or not, we would still have the position. Mr. Brewer would hopefully still be in it. And if I read this correctly, it's a 50-50 match. The grant is paying for half of his salary, correct?
That's correct. Well, it's actually probably a little less than half of his salary. However, we would need to match whatever we received with at least that amount again, if that makes sense. So whatever we get out of the grant, we need to provide that same amount in the match. And thankfully, his salary, I believe, exceeds that. So it's more than enough to cover our portion of the match.
Thank you. I think it's a good approach. It's a necessary position for the department, for the city. We would be insane if we got rid of it. So I think it's the right way to go. So I would support this. I would make a motion to approve the recommended action.
I'll second.
Hey, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Chair McDonald,
Aye.
Member Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, if my math is correct, that takes us to item E, items for future agendas. Do any of the committee members have any future items for discussion or action for this committee to be hearing?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you all very much. If there is no further business, I would say that adjournment is in order. Mr. City Manager, any final comments?
Have a safe, happy new year.
I'm sorry,
Happy New
sir.
Year.
Oh, Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to all the committee members, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Happy New
Thank you
Year.
all.